name's Namisha. I'm the Quality Manager for Equality, Diversity and Learner Experience at Hall College, which is a college with two sites in Rochdale and in Middleton, which is just outside of Manchester. And Elsie's helped us fund a project called Equality Peer Mentors. So what we did was we took 15 learners and also 2 members of staff and developed a project called Equality Peer Mentors. The idea around that was around supporting learners to be able to champion the equality and diversity agenda. So they were talking about issues and working with their peers around issues that challenge them around bullying, around harassment, rather than it just being a punitive measure. So what we did was we developed a training programme which provided them in 3 groups to develop a knowledge base around particular characteristics underpinned by the fundamental ideas around human rights. And we also gave them a programme called a philosophical inquiry, which was a qualification run by SAPRE, so that they were able to learn the techniques to be able to have discussions and also have debate with other learners. The underpinning idea behind all of this was around building the resilience of young people, so when they're out there in the community, when they're out there in the big wide world, then they're prepared to challenge and debate about big issues. So our first group looked at race, religion and age. So they looked at interesting stimuluses like race hate crime from the 60s. They looked at profiling of race hate areas. They looked at age and in terms of how under 18s can't vote and what impact that has on learner voice. And they also looked at the impact of people not being able to express themselves by wearing hijab. Our second group looked at social and unsociable disabilities and characteristics. So they looked at gender, sex, disability, civil partnership, and they looked at partnerships generally as well. And their idea was to look at different aspects of gender inequality, difference in salaries. They looked at different ideas around civil partnerships and the right of LGBT communities and how that works in a real life situation. And they also looked at ideas around adoption, so the wider equality characteristics as well. Our third group looked at divisive narratives. So this was around cohesion, extremism, and it was also around socioeconomic issues. As I mentioned, we're from Rochdale, and the big news in Rochdale was around the 9 men accused of sexual exploitation of the girls. So for us, that was a big issue. So what we did was we used that in terms of how that plays out in the media. So the divisive narratives was all about the information that people have presented in front of them and how they are equipped to challenge these things. So we looked at things like the idea that people have the image of Muslim people being terrorists, or we looked at Andrew Breivik in Norway and whether he was an extremist or a terrorist, and what do we use with definitions, how does that compare to Bin Laden, for example. And we also looked at other things around asylum, immigration. We're quite deprived in Rochdale, so how does that play out in a local context? So once the groups had all of their knowledge, we gave them the techniques through philosophical inquiry. So they worked as a group and they looked at how they can debate and discuss things in a safe way, be challenging, but not force their opinion on people. So once they've developed them techniques, they came together and developed their own workshops. And the idea was around practicing what they'd learned to achieve this qualification. So they delivered as part of our Learner Voice conference, they led on 3 workshops. One was a nice icebreaker of agree, strongly disagree, and they talked about some stimuluses. The second one talked about wearing of the hijab and voting and what the issues were. The key issues that we pulled out there was around self-expression. People have a choice to express how they feel and how they want to show their cultural identity, but also that everyone is different. So if one person is wearing a headscarf and another one doesn't, that's completely fine. And how that has played out in a national context as well. And the third workshop was around extremism, and we focused in on using the philosophical inquiry matrix and looking at how we can look at questions that are on the surface level and moving into inquiries to ask deeper questions. So for the sexual exploitation case, we were asking around, is this about a small group of people from a particular community, or is this more about other things? Why did these people, young people, why were they in care? What support was needed to help them to start looking at deeper questions in that sense? We also developed a resource. This is around targeted work with FE colleges. So as I said, the learners were supported to develop inquiries. So what they've done is developed a resource that focuses on each of the characteristics, and then for a starter for 10, an inquiry. So this one is around gender, and it says, what can we do to increase numbers of women leaders in business and industry? It's a question that the sector will look at generally, but it's about providing people with something that they can debate and move forward. And as people, citizens of the future, these are the people that we want to depend on to do this. In terms of our learner feedback, it was very positive. Almost all people enjoyed the workshops. They either said strongly agree or strongly agree or agree. We had one person who didn't enjoy the last workshop, and it is because it was challenging, I think, so that's understandable. We captured feedback in 3 ways. We captured feedback from all participants who attended the Learner Voice conference. We collected feedback, video feedback from learners around what they thought and the changes. So I'll just tell you some of the things that they said. They had said things like, I enjoyed hearing about other people's opinion, even when I didn't agree with them. I liked the fact that people got to speak their mind, engaging with learners in contentious issues, open discussion about important issues. We also had wider questions, so some people said, I have more confidence in being able to present in front of people. I enjoyed the sessions and the learners engaged well, and they liked the fact that they were able to talk about things in a safe environment. And these were all key things for us. How we develop this in the future, these student leadership team members who we've been working with will be working across the college to champion equality and diversity issues. So whether that is about being a bullying buddy or being a mentor when we have new learners in college, may also be about them going out to other schools and promoting what we do as a college, but it's also about encouraging other learners to come forward and share their own experiences as well. How I think other teaching providers can use this is these workshops we delivered in 25 minutes. So as long as the techniques are there and you provide that safe and open discussion space, you can use it as part of citizenship skills, you can do it as part of a tutorial programme. We intend to use this as part of our Every Learner Matters agenda. So when we're looking at things like health, One World Week, which is our celebration week, we'll be using this to underpin key themes. It doesn't just work for equality and diversity, it can work for anything, but the key aspect is it allows learners the opportunity to question things from their own lens rather than from the lens that the media puts in front of people, and it helps build resilience and it prepares them for the wide world out there, and also backing their families to try and challenge these stereotypes and these myths that happen and giving them the confidence to be able to do